My ex-husband refused to let our 8-year-old be the flower girl at my wedding, so he told her he was taking her on vacation that day instead. When I confronted him about the lie, he violently shook her and called her a brat for crying. My ex-husband and I were married for 10 years, and in that time we had 2 daughters, Emily and Gabby. It's been 6 years since we divorced because he cheated on me with a freshman in college and left me for her. It was a very hard time for me, especially because he did not make the divorce process easy. He would always comment on my body, saying I was ugly, and that's why he left me. He said he hated being with me and doesn't like that I was not as tight as I used to be. I was in so much emotional pain. I had spent so much time on our relationship only to get cheated on and be emotionally manipulated. Emily knew why we divorced, and she held resentment towards her father for that. She comforted me a lot during that time, and I hated that I wasn't strong enough to support her since she was only 16. Gabby was only 8, so she was too young to understand what was actually happening. Even though he was a horrible husband, he was a good father to both of them, and tried his best to rebuild his relationship with Emily, though it never worked out. He fought me for full custody in the divorce, but ultimately we ended with shared custody. The girls would be with me from Friday to Monday. I tried my best, but I would spiral from time to time since I was always seeing his partner whenever I picked the girls up. I was afraid that Gabby would start to see her as her mom, but then the day of our wedding anniversary came. I tried to keep it together during work, but during my lunch break, I went up to the roof and bawled my eyes out. That was also the day my ex decided to marry his affair partner. That's how I met my husband, Ben. He was there while I was crying and asked what happened. Ben listened to my concerns and stayed with me the whole day to make sure I was fine. He even dropped me off at my house because I was too emotionally unstable to drive myself. Our relationship quickly developed from there, and we bonded over our trauma. He told me his story about how he lost his wife and only daughter 10 years ago in a car accident. He was nothing like my ex, and that was all I wanted. He was caring and mindful of my feelings. He was also really fond of my daughters. Emily started calling him dad after a year of us dating. Ben hugged her and practically cried the first time it happened. He said it was so long since a daughter had called him dad. Gabby also calls him Daddy Ben, and he tells me his heart melts every time. I wanted to have a baby with Ben, and we had a son 1 year ago. My daughters love him, but are a bit jealous they have to share Ben with another person. Ben reassures them that there's plenty of him to go around. He takes me on dates, cares for the baby, takes Emily shopping, and plays whatever games Gabby wants, no matter how girly. Ben proposed when I was pregnant, and we've been planning our wedding since then. Emily is one of my bridesmaids, and Gabby is my flower girl. The problem is that Gabby still goes back and forth between houses. My wedding is in 2 weeks, and my ex was fine with it at first, but now he's refusing to bring my daughter to my mom's place to get ready. He says he only sees his daughter 3 times a week and won't give up his days for some party. When his wedding was on one of my days, I still let my girls go because I knew how important it was. I tried to compromise by letting him take my days for a week so she could be at the wedding. He refused. The wedding is on Tuesday, which is his day, and I can't change the date because everything is booked. We argued a lot, and he knows how excited Gabby is to be my flower girl and how heartbroken she'll be if he doesn't let her go. This Friday, I went to pick up Gabby, and Emily was mad. She said Gabby was throwing a tantrum because their father told her he was taking them on vacation on my wedding day. I was furious. I stomped into his house with Ben and demanded to see my daughter. I called my ex a coward for not telling Gabby the real reason why she can't be at my wedding. I told him to tell her the truth or I would. He caved and told Gabby there was no vacation. He just didn't want her at my wedding. Gabby cried and said she hates him. She ran to Ben and hugged him. My ex yanked her away, violently shook her, and called her a brat who doesn't appreciate her dad. I saw red and slapped him for talking to my daughter that way. He was going to slap me back, but Ben grabbed his hand and pushed him away. We left with Gabby since it was my custody time anyway. When we got home, Emily asked if it was possible to keep Gabby with us forever. Then she told me what was really happening behind closed doors. Her dad has been really angry ever since I started dating Ben. He would say I downgraded and Ben would never replace him as a father. It got worse when I got pregnant. He started asking his wife for kids, but she refused, resulting in many fights. When Gabby called Ben Daddy Ben in front of my ex, he started lashing out at her for every small mistake. He even forced both girls to call his wife mom. Emily refused, but Gabby was too scared. Emily doesn't have to visit him but goes anyway to protect Gabby. She didn't tell me because she saw how happy I was with Ben after watching me crumble during the divorce. I never wanted her to take that burden. I was so busy with my new life that I neglected my daughters. I told Emily that while I'm proud of her for protecting Gabby, she should have told me because I'm their mother, and I'll protect them from everything. I spent the next few hours comforting both my daughters. Emily held Gabby while she cried, and I made hot chocolate for everyone. Ben took care of the baby so I could focus entirely on the girls. We all sat together on the couch, and I watched Gabby slowly calm down in her sister's arms. The weekend passed quietly. Gabby barely spoke about what happened, but she clung to Ben whenever he was around. Emily stayed close to her sister, playing games and watching movies together. I documented everything that had happened, writing down dates and times in a notebook I kept in my bedroom drawer. Monday morning came too quickly. I had to return the girls to their father's house, and my stomach churned at the thought. Gabby begged to stay home from school, but I knew keeping her would only make things worse legally. I helped her pack her school bag while Emily got ready in her room. Ben drove us to my ex's house. The whole ride there, Gabby sat silently in the back seat, holding Emily's hand. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw my ex standing at the front door with his arms crossed. His wife stood behind him, looking uncomfortable. I walked Gabby to the door while Emily followed. My ex grabbed Gabby's bag from her hands and pulled her inside without saying a word to me. Emily hugged me goodbye and whispered that she would watch over her sister. The door slammed shut before I could respond. Back in the car, Ben reached over and squeezed my hand. We drove home in silence, both of us worried about what might happen over the next few days. I spent the morning calling lawyers, trying to find someone who could help me protect Gabby. The first lawyer I spoke with told me that one incident wasn't enough to change custody. The second one said the same thing. By the third call, I felt defeated. They all wanted documentation of a pattern of behavior, not just one bad day. That afternoon, I went back to work, but I couldn't concentrate. My coworkers noticed I was distracted, but I couldn't bring myself to explain what was happening. During my lunch break, I sat in my car and cried, feeling helpless. Tuesday arrived with a text from Emily. She said sent me a photo of Gabby's breakfast, a single piece of toast. The message said their father was giving Gabby the silent treatment. I saved the message and added it to my growing documentation. Throughout the week, Emily continued sending me updates. Gabby was being ignored at dinner, left out of family activities, and criticized for small things like not putting her shoes in the right spot. Each message broke my heart a little more. Wednesday evening, Emily called me from the bathroom. She spoke in whispers, telling me that their father had thrown away Gabby's flower girl dress. He claimed it was taking up too much space in her closet. Gabby had cried herself to sleep. I wanted to drive over there immediately, but Ben reminded me that we had to follow the custody agreement. Any violation could be used against me in court. Instead, I called another lawyer and scheduled a consultation for Thursday morning. The lawyer's office smelled like coffee and old books. I sat across from a woman named Mrs. Chen, who listened carefully as I explained the situation. She took notes while I showed her the text messages from Emily and my documentation of events. Mrs. Chen told me we could file for an emergency custody modification, but we needed more evidence. She suggested I keep detailed records of everything and advised me to have Emily continue documenting what she witnessed. The consultation ended with her giving me her card and telling me to call if anything escalated. Thursday afternoon, I picked up fabric samples for the wedding decorations. The wedding planner called to confirm final details, but I could barely focus on her questions. My mind kept drifting to Gabby and how devastated she would be if she couldn't be there. That evening, Ben and I sat at the kitchen table going over our options. We discussed postponing the wedding, but all our vendors had strict cancellation policies. We would lose thousands of dollars, money we had saved for over a year. Friday finally arrived. I drove to pick up the girls, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I knocked on the door, my ex's wife answered. She looked tired and avoided eye contact as she called for the girls. Emily came out first, carrying both their bags. Gabby followed slowly, her eyes red and puffy. She didn't look at me as she walked to the car. My ex appeared in the doorway and announced that he had enrolled Gabby in a day camp for Tuesday, the day of my wedding. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice steady. I reminded him about our previous discussion and how important this was to Gabby. He shrugged and said the camp was already paid for. Then he closed the door in my face. In the car, Gabby finally broke down. She sobbed about missing the wedding, about not being able to wear her special dress, about letting me down. Emily held her in the back seat while I drove, trying to see through my own tears. At home, Ben was waiting with dinner ready. He had made Gabby's favorite pasta and set the table with the fancy plates. She managed a small smile when she saw the effort he had made. During dinner, we talked about everything except the wedding. After the girls went to bed, I called Mrs. Chen and left a voicemail about the day camp situation. Ben held me while I cried on the couch, feeling like I was failing my daughter. We stayed up late researching our options, but every solution seemed to lead to more conflict. Saturday morning, Emily came downstairs early. She sat with me at the kitchen table and showed me videos she had secretly recorded on her phone. They showed her father yelling at Gabby for minor things, calling her ungrateful and spoiled. My hands trembled as I watched my 8-year-old daughter flinch at his words. I spent the morning organizing all the evidence we had collected: text messages, videos, photos of the thrown-away dress, documentation of the day camp enrollment. The folder grew thicker, but I wondered if it would be enough. Ben took the girls to the park that afternoon to give me time to meet with another lawyer. This one, Mr. Rodriguez, seemed more optimistic. He said the videos were compelling and that denying Gabby participation in the wedding could be seen as emotional manipulation. Sunday was quiet. We went to church as a family, then had lunch at Gabby's favorite restaurant. She picked at her food, clearly anxious about returning to her father's house the next day. Emily tried to cheer her up with jokes, but nothing seemed to work. That evening, I helped Gabby pack her bag for school. She asked if she could bring her flower girl shoes to show her teacher, and I had to tell her no. I was afraid her father would throw those away too. She nodded sadly and put them back in her closet. Monday morning came again. The drop-off was tense. My ex took Gabby's bag without a word while his wife stood in the background. Emily gave me a longer hug than usual, whispering that she would record anything important. Back home, I found Ben in the nursery with our son. He looked up at me with concern as I sat in the rocking chair. We both knew the wedding was just 8 days away, and we were running out of time to find a solution. I called Mrs. Chen again and scheduled another appointment. She said we could file paperwork for an emergency hearing, but there was no guarantee it would be scheduled before the wedding. The legal system moved slowly, even in urgent situations. That afternoon, I went to my final wedding dress fitting. The seamstress chattered excitedly about the big day while I stood on the platform, fighting back tears. The dress was beautiful, but all I could think about was Gabby not being there to see it. Tuesday brought another text from Emily. Their father had told Gabby she was being dramatic about the wedding, and that she needed to grow up. He said family events weren't that important, and she would understand when she was older. I added this to my documentation, my anger growing with each entry. Ben found me at the kitchen table that evening, surrounded by papers and legal forms. He made me tea and sat with me as I organized everything for the lawyer. Wednesday's appointment with Mrs. Chen was productive. She filed the paperwork for an emergency hearing and said she would push for an expedited date. She couldn't promise anything, but she would try her best to get us in front of a judge before the wedding. The rest of the week blurred together. Wedding preparations continued while I anxiously waited for news about the hearing. Emily's updates grew more concerning. Gabby had stopped eating properly and was having nightmares. By Thursday, I was desperate. I considered just keeping Gabby when I picked her up on Friday, but Mrs. Chen warned me that violating the custody agreement would hurt our case. I had to follow the rules, even when every instinct told me to protect my daughter. Friday's pickup was different. When I arrived, Gabby ran out of the house before anyone could stop her. She threw herself into my arms, sobbing that she didn't want to miss the wedding. My ex followed, demanding she come back inside to get her things. Emily emerged with both their bags, her face set with determination. She announced that she had recorded everything that week and that their father should be ashamed of himself. My ex's face turned red, but he said nothing as both girls got in my car. The weekend was bittersweet. We had the girls, but Monday would come too soon. The wedding was now just 4 days away, and we still had no solution. I pushed these thoughts aside and focused on making the weekend special for both daughters. Saturday morning, the phone rang. Mrs. Chen's voice was urgent. We had been granted an emergency hearing for Monday morning. My heart raced as she explained what would happen and what documents I needed to bring. I spent the rest of Saturday preparing for the hearing. Ben watched watched the girls while I gathered every piece of evidence we had collected. Emily helped by writing down specific incidents she had witnessed, her handwriting neat and careful as she documented her father's behavior. Sunday morning, I woke up early and couldn't go back to sleep. My mind raced with what might happen at the hearing. I made breakfast for everyone, trying to maintain normalcy for the girls. Gabby asked if she could wear her flower girl dress to church, and I agreed, watching her twirl happily in the living room. After church, we stopped by my mother's house. She had been helping with wedding preparations and showed Gabby where she would get ready on the big day. My mother pulled me aside and handed me an envelope containing letters from family members who had witnessed my ex's behavior at various gatherings. She had been quietly collecting these statements for weeks. That evening, Mrs. Chen called to review our strategy for the hearing. She explained that the judge would want to hear about the pattern of behavior, not just isolated incidents. She advised me to remain calm and factual, letting the evidence speak for itself. Ben sat beside me during the call, taking notes on questions the judge might ask. Monday morning arrived with a thunderstorm. I dressed carefully in my most professional outfit while Ben made breakfast for the girls. Emily wished me luck as I left, and Gabby hugged me tightly, asking if this meant she could come to the wedding. I told her I would do everything possible to make that happen. The courthouse was intimidating with its marble floors and high ceilings. I met Mrs. Chen in the lobby, and she reviewed our documents one final time. My ex arrived with his own lawyer, avoiding eye contact as we waited to be called into the courtroom. The judge was an older woman with kind eyes who listened carefully as both sides presented their arguments. Mrs. Chen presented our evidence methodically: the videos, text messages, documentation of the thrown-away dress, and witness statements. My ex's lawyer argued that these were minor parenting disagreements blown out of proportion. When the judge asked me directly about the situation, I explained how my daughter's emotional well-being was deteriorating. I described her nightmares, her fear of disappointing her father, and her desperate wish to participate in our wedding. My voice cracked when I mentioned finding her crying over her destroyed flower girl dress. My ex testified that he was simply maintaining consistent parenting time, and that I was trying to manipulate the situation for my convenience. He claimed the day camp was a long-planned educational opportunity, and that I was being selfish by prioritizing a party over his parenting time. The judge reviewed Emily's written statement with particular interest. She asked several questions about the videos Emily had taken, noting the concerning language used toward an 8-year-old child. She also questioned why the flower girl dress had been discarded if there were no issues with Gabby's participation in the wedding. After deliberating, the judge made her decision. She granted a temporary modification allowing Gabby to attend the wedding, regardless of whose parenting day it fell on. She also ordered both parents to attend co-parenting counseling and scheduled a follow-up hearing in 6 weeks to review the custody arrangement more thoroughly. My ex stormed out of the courtroom while I thanked Mrs. Chen profusely. She reminded me this was just a temporary order, and we would need to continue documenting everything for the follow-up hearing. But for now, Gabby could be at our wedding. I rushed home to share the news. Gabby jumped up and down with excitement when I told her, and Emily smiled with relief. Ben picked me up and spun me around in celebration. We spent the rest of the day finalizing wedding details, this time with joy instead of dread. Tuesday morning, I received a text from my ex stating he would drop Gabby off at my mother's house as ordered by the court. His message was curt, but I didn't care. My daughter would be there for one of the most important days of my life. The next 2 days flew by in a whirlwind of final preparations. Emily helped me pack wedding day emergency kits while Gabby practiced walking down the aisle in the backyard. Ben handled last-minute vendor confirmations, keeping me calm when small issues arose. Wednesday evening, my ex's wife called me unexpectedly. She spoke quietly, explaining that she had been reconsidering many things since the court hearing. She apologized for her role in the situation and admitted she had been uncomfortable with how my ex treated Gabby, but hadn't known how to intervene. She revealed that my ex had been increasingly controlling with her as well, especially after she refused to have children with him. She was considering leaving him but was scared of his reaction. I gave her the contact information for a domestic violence support group and told her she could reach out if she needed help. Thursday morning brought a new complication. My ex sent an email stating he had enrolled Gabby in a different activity for the afternoon of the wedding, a makeup swimming lesson he claimed was mandatory. Mrs. Chen quickly responded with a reminder of the court order, copying his lawyer on the email. Within hours, my ex backed down, but the stress of his continued attempts to sabotage the wedding was taking its toll. I found myself checking my phone constantly, worried about what he might try next. Ben suggested we turn off notifications and focus on enjoying our last few days before the wedding. That evening, we had our rehearsal dinner. Gabby wore a special dress and couldn't stop smiling as she practiced her flower girl duties. Emily gave a touching speech about how Ben had become the father figure she needed and how grateful she was that I had found happiness again. Friday was dedicated to pampering and preparation. My mother, sisters, and close friends joined us for a spa day while Ben spent time with his groomsmen. Gabby got her nails painted pink to match her flower girl dress, and Emily helped her practice her walk one more time. That night, I barely slept from excitement and nerves. I kept checking on Gabby, making sure she was really there and this wasn't just a dream. Emily found me in the hallway at 2 a.m. and hugged me, saying she was proud of how I had fought for our family. Saturday, our wedding day, dawned bright and clear. My mother's house buzzed with activity as the bridal party got ready. Gabby twirled in her flower girl dress, finally able to wear it for its intended purpose. Emily looked stunning in her bridesmaid dress, helping me with last-minute touches. As we prepared to leave for the venue, my phone buzzed with a text from my ex. He had arrived at the venue early and was demanding to speak with Gabby before the ceremony. My heart sank, fearing he would try to upset her or convince her not to participate. Emily saw my face and immediately took charge. She asked my cousin to take Gabby to the bridal suite at the venue through the back entrance while she and I dealt with the situation. My mother came with us for support. At the venue, we found my ex in the parking lot arguing with Ben's brother, who was serving as an usher. He claimed he just wanted to wish his daughter well, but his agitated demeanor suggested otherwise. I approached calmly, with Emily and my mother flanking me. I informed him that Gabby was getting ready and couldn't be disturbed. I reminded him of the court order and suggested he take his seat if he planned to stay for the ceremony. He responded by accusing me of poisoning his daughter against him and threatening to contest the temporary order. Ben Ben appeared, having been alerted by his brother. He stood beside me but didn't engage with my ex, simply providing silent support. My ex continued his rant about parental alienation and how I was ruining his relationship with his daughter. Emily stepped forward and spoke firmly to her father. She told him that his behavior was the only thing damaging his relationship with Gabby. Very interesting how the ex-wife's phone call adds a new layer to the story. It suggests the ex-husband's controlling behavior goes beyond just his daughter's. The OP does a good job showing how even with the court order in place, the ex keeps trying to create problems, like that last-minute swimming lesson attempt. She reminded him of all the times he had made Gabby cry, thrown away her belongings, and prioritized his anger over her happiness. Her voice was steady and mature beyond her years. My ex seemed stunned by Emily's words. He started to respond, but the venue coordinator appeared and politely asked him to take his seat or leave the premises. After a long moment, he walked toward the ceremony space, muttering under his breath. We returned to the bridal suite where Gabby was happily playing with my cousin, unaware of the drama outside. I touched up my makeup and took several deep breaths, refusing to let my ex ruin this day. Emily squeezed my hand and reminded me that in just an hour, I would be married to a man who truly loved and respected our family. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Gabby performed her flower girl duties perfectly, beaming as she scattered rose petals down the aisle. Emily stood beside me as I exchanged vows with Ben, tears streaming down both our faces. I noticed my ex sitting in the back row, his expression unreadable. During the reception, Gabby danced with Ben to their special song, standing on his feet as he twirled her around. Emily gave another speech, this time thanking Ben for showing them what a healthy relationship looked like. Even some of Ben's family members were wiping away tears. Halfway through the reception, I noticed my ex had left without saying goodbye. His wife remained, however, approaching me during a quiet moment. She congratulated me and whispered that she had made an appointment with a divorce attorney for the following week. I hugged her and wished her strength. The rest of the reception was joyful and drama-free. Gabby caught the bouquet and proudly announced she would be the next one married, making everyone laugh. Emily danced with her new baby brother, promising to teach him everything she knew. Ben and I stole moments together, marveling at how we had overcome so much to reach this day. As the evening wound down, Gabby fell asleep in Ben's arms, still wearing her flower girl dress. Emily helped us load gifts into the car, chatting excitedly about our upcoming family honeymoon. We had decided to postpone a traditional honeymoon in favor of a family trip where the girls could join us. Sunday morning, we woke up as an officially blended family. Gabby bounced on our bed, asking if she could call Ben Daddy now without the Ben part. He told her she could call him whatever felt right to her. She settled on Dad, and his eyes misted over. That afternoon, my ex called demanding to know when I would return Gabby. I reminded him that our custody schedule remained the same, and I would bring her over tomorrow as usual. He accused me of trying to replace him and threatened to file for full custody. Mrs. Chen had warned me this might happen. She said threatened people often lash out when they feel they're losing control. I documented the call and tried not to let it dampen our joy. Ben suggested we take the kids to the park to enjoy the beautiful day. Monday's drop-off was predictably tense. My ex barely looked at Gabby as she walked in, and his wife was nowhere to be seen. Emily later texted that their father was giving Gabby the cold shoulder again, punishing her for enjoying the wedding. Over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. My ex would be hostile during exchanges, make snide comments about the wedding, and continue his emotional manipulation of Gabby. But something had changed. Gabby was more resilient. Having stood up for herself with our support, she seemed less affected by his behavior. Emily continued documenting incidents, now with Gabby's knowledge and permission. Gabby would tell Emily when their father said hurtful things, and Emily would record it in a notebook they kept hidden. The sisters grew even closer through this shared experience. 3 weeks after the wedding, my ex's wife filed for divorce. He blamed me for turning her against him, and became even more difficult during custody exchanges. He started showing up late, forgetting important items, and making last-minute schedule changes that disrupted our routine. Mrs. Chen advised me to document everything meticulously for our upcoming follow-up hearing. She said the judge would want to see how the temporary order had worked, and whether my ex had made any effort to improve his co-parenting behavior. One evening, Gabby came home from her father's house with a disturbing story. He had told her that if the judge changed their custody arrangement, it would be her fault for choosing Ben over him. She was in tears, feeling guilty for loving her stepfather and enjoying our wedding. I held her while she cried, assuring her that adult problems were never a child's fault. Emily joined us, sharing her own experiences of their father's guilt trips over the years. Ben made hot chocolate and reminded Gabby that loving one parent didn't mean loving the other any less. The next morning, I called Mrs. Chen to report this latest incident. She said emotional manipulation of this severity would be taken seriously by the court. She suggested we might want to request a guardian ad litem, a court-appointed advocate who would represent Gabby's best interests. As the follow-up hearing approached, my ex's behavior escalated. He filed numerous motions claiming parental alienation, demanded makeup time for the wedding day despite the court order, and even suggested I was an unfit mother for exposing our daughter to a replacement father. His own lawyer seemed frustrated by his demands. During a pre-hearing conference call, she suggested mediation to resolve our issues outside of court. My ex refused, insisting he wanted a judge to see how I was destroying his relationship with his daughter. The night before the hearing, our family gathered for dinner. Gabby was nervous about potentially having to speak to the judge, but Emily reassured her that telling the truth was always the right thing to do. Ben promised that no matter what happened, we were a family and would face it together. I spent hours reviewing our documentation with Mrs. Chen. We had months of evidence showing my ex's pattern of emotional abuse, his attempts to interfere with the wedding, and his continued manipulation of Gabby. We also had positive evidence. Gabby's improved grades, her therapist's notes about her increased confidence, and statements from teachers about her happiness. The morning of the hearing, I woke to find Ben already up, making breakfast for everyone. He had taken the day off work to be there for support. Emily wore her most professional outfit, ready to testify if needed. Gabby chose to wear the dress she had worn to our rehearsal dinner, saying it made her feel brave. As we prepared to leave for court, I reflected on how much had changed since that first emergency hearing. Our family had grown stronger through adversity. Gabby had found her voice. Emily had shown maturity beyond her years. And Ben had proven himself as as a devoted stepfather who put the girls' needs first. Whatever happened at the hearing, I knew we would face it together. The wedding had been just the beginning of our journey as a blended family. Now came the harder part, protecting my daughters while navigating a difficult co-parenting relationship and building our new life together. The courthouse felt different this time. I arrived early with Ben and the girls, watching other families navigate their own custody battles in the hallway. Gabby gripped my hand tightly while Emily reviewed her notes one more time. The guardian ad litem, Mrs. Chen, had requested met us outside the courtroom, a woman named Ms. Martinez who specialized in representing children's interests. Ms. Martinez spent 20 minutes talking with Gabby in a separate room while we waited. Emily paced nervously, adjusting her outfit repeatedly. Ben kept our son entertained with quiet toys, maintaining the calm presence our family needed. Through the glass doors, I saw my ex arrive with his lawyer, his jaw set in determination. Inside the courtroom, the same judge from our emergency hearing presided. She reviewed the thick file of documentation, while both lawyers made opening statements. My ex's attorney argued that the temporary order had been unnecessary, and that normal parenting disagreements had been blown out of proportion. Mrs. Chen methodically presented our evidence of continued emotional manipulation and custody interference. The judge called Emily to testify first. My daughter walked to the witness stand with remarkable composure, describing the incidents she had witnessed over the past months. She detailed her father's emotional outbursts, the destruction of Gabby's belongings, and the guilt trips designed to turn Gabby against our family. Emily's voice remained steady, even when describing how their father had told Gabby she was betraying him by loving Ben. My ex's lawyer attempted to suggest Emily had been coached, but Emily firmly corrected her. She pulled out her notebook, showing dates and times she had documented independently. The judge examined the notebook carefully, noting the consistency with other evidence presented. When my ex took the stand, he portrayed himself as a concerned father trying to maintain his relationship with his daughters. He claimed I had systematically turned them against him by introducing Ben too quickly and allowing them to call him dad. His testimony grew increasingly agitated as he described feeling replaced and discarded. The judge asked pointed questions about specific incidents: the thrown-away flower girl dress, the false vacation promise, the day camp enrollment. My ex's explanations grew contradictory. He claimed the dress was accidentally donated, then said Gabby had outgrown it, then admitted he thought it was inappropriate for her to participate in my wedding. Ms. Martinez presented her findings from interviewing Gabby. She reported that Gabby loved both parents, but felt constant pressure from her father to choose sides. The guardian described Gabby's anxiety about visits, her fear of disappointing her father, and her confusion about why she couldn't love both her dad and Ben. Most significantly, Ms. Martinez noted that Gabby had expressed feeling unsafe emotionally at her father's house. The judge reviewed Gabby's recent report cards, which showed improvement since the wedding. Teachers had submitted statements about her increased confidence and participation in class. Her therapist's notes, submitted with proper authorization, documented reduced anxiety symptoms when the temporary order provided stability around the wedding. My ex's wife arrived late, slipping into the back row. Her presence clearly rattled my ex, who kept glancing back at her throughout the proceedings. When the judge called a brief recess, I watched him corner her in the hallway, gesturing angrily while she stood firm. After the recess, Mrs. Chen called me to testify about the impact of my ex's behavior on our family. I described Gabby's nightmares, her fear of expressing affection for Ben in front of her father, and the constant walking on eggshells during transitions. I explained how Emily had taken on an inappropriate protective role, sacrificing her own well-being to shield her sister. The judge asked about our co-parenting communication. I showed printed emails and text messages demonstrating my attempts to coordinate schedules, share information about the girls' activities, and maintain flexibility. In contrast, my ex's responses were curt, hostile, or completely absent. His repeated threats to pursue full custody every time something didn't go his way established a clear pattern of using the legal system as a weapon. Ben testified briefly about his relationship with the girls. He emphasized that he had never tried to replace their father, always encouraging them to maintain that relationship. Notice how his story keeps changing? First, the dress was donated by accident. Then Gabby outgrew it. Then he admits he didn't want her in the wedding. That kind of shifting explanation means someone isn't being truthful. He described how Gabby would return from visits withdrawn and anxious, often taking days to return to her normal, cheerful self. His testimony remained factual and respectful, never attacking my ex personally. The judge then made an unexpected decision. She wanted to speak with Gabby directly in her chambers. Ms. Martinez accompanied Gabby while both lawyers waited outside. The rest of us sat in tense silence for 30 minutes until they returned. Gabby looked relieved but tired as she climbed into Ben's lap. During closing arguments, my ex's lawyer maintained that personality differences between households didn't justify custody modification. She argued that children naturally experience adjustment periods during transitions, and that my ex deserved equal time with his daughter. The lawyer suggested counseling could address any communication issues. Mrs. Chen's closing was powerful. She outlined the documented pattern of emotional abuse, the use of custody as a control mechanism, and the clear negative impact on Gabby's well-being. She emphasized that this wasn't about personality differences, but about one parent consistently prioritizing his own anger over his child's emotional safety. She requested primary custody with supervised therapeutic visitation until my ex completed anger management and parenting classes. The judge took a brief recess to review her notes. My ex spent the time furiously whispering with his lawyer while his wife watched from her seat, her expression unreadable. Emily held Gabby's hand while we waited, whispering reassurances that everything would be okay. When the judge returned, she delivered a comprehensive ruling. She found that my ex had engaged in a pattern of emotional manipulation and parental alienation attempts. The evidence clearly showed he had prioritized his own feelings over Gabby's well-being, using custody time as a weapon rather than focusing on his daughter's needs. The judge noted that Emily's testimony and documentation were particularly compelling, showing a clear pattern over time. The new custody order granted me primary physical custody, with my ex receiving supervised visits every other Saturday for 4 hours. He was required to complete a 16-week anger management program and participate in family therapy with Gabby before any expansion of visitation separation could be considered. The judge also ordered him to pay additional child support to reflect the change in custody time. My ex erupted at the ruling, standing up and shouting about his rights as a father. The judge warned him once before having the bailiff step forward. His lawyer grabbed his arm, urgently whispering for him to sit down. He complied, but continued muttering under his breath about appeals and investigations. The judge addressed him directly, stating that his reaction demonstrated exactly why supervision was necessary. She reminded him that custody decisions were based on the child's best interests, not parental rights, and that his behavior throughout the proceedings had only reinforced her decision. She warned that any attempts to manipulate or pressure Gabby would result in further restrictions. As we left the courtroom, my ex's wife approached us. She handed me an envelope containing her own statement about witnessing his treatment of Gabby, saying she couldn't submit it earlier due to fear, but wanted us to have it for our records. She wished us well before walking away, ignoring my ex's calls after her. The supervised visitation center was a neutral location with trained staff. The first visit was scheduled for 2 weeks later, giving my ex time to enroll in anger management. Gabby expressed relief that she wouldn't have to go to his house but could still see him if she wanted. Emily hugged her sister tightly, finally able to let go of her protective burden. Over the following days, we established new routines. Gabby no longer needed to pack a bag every few days or worry about which house rules applied. She decorated her room more permanently, hanging up posters she had previously kept in a folder to transport between homes. Her anxiety visibly decreased as she realized she could simply be a kid without navigating between two hostile territories. Emily began focusing on her own life again, spending time with friends instead of constantly monitoring her sister's well-being. She applied for summer programs she had previously avoided due to custody schedules. The weight of premature responsibility lifted from her shoulders, allowing her to be a regular teenager. The first supervised visit arrived with unexpected calm. The center had clear rules: no discussing custody, no negative comments about the other parent, no guilt trips or manipulation. Gabby went willingly but cautiously, returning 2 hours later in good spirits. She reported that her dad had been different, actually playing games with her instead of interrogating her about our household. My ex initially resisted the anger management requirement, filing a motion claiming it was unnecessary. The judge denied it swiftly, noting that compliance with court orders wasn't optional. His lawyer, clearly frustrated with his difficult client, withdrew from the case shortly after. He hired a new attorney who seemed more interested in quick billing than sound legal strategy. The family therapy sessions began 6 weeks later. The therapist, Dr. Nathaniel, specialized in high-conflict custody situations. He met with Gabby individually first, then with my ex, establishing ground rules for their joint sessions. Progress was slow but measurable. My ex learned to focus on Gabby's experiences rather than his own grievances during their limited time together. 3 months into the new arrangement, Gabby's transformation was remarkable. Her grades improved further. She joined the school choir, and her nightmares completely stopped. She looked forward to her supervised visits, knowing they had clear boundaries and time limits. The pressure to choose sides had lifted, allowing her to maintain whatever relationship with her father felt comfortable to her. Emily graduated high school with honors, delivering a speech about resilience and family bonds. My ex attended, sitting separately but behaving appropriately. It was the first family event where his presence didn't create tension or drama. Gabby beamed with pride at her sister's accomplishments, no longer worried about showing enthusiasm that might upset anyone. The supervised visits continued for 6 months before Dr. Nathaniel recommended a gradual transition to unsupervised time. The judge approved a stepped approach. First, 2-hour unsupervised visits in public places, then half days at his apartment, eventually working up to overnight visits if all went well. Each phase required successful completion before moving forward. My ex's compliance improved dramatically after his wife's divorce was finalized. Without the added stress of that relationship, he seemed to accept his new reality. He stopped filing constant motions and began focusing on rebuilding his relationship with Gabby within the established framework. The anger management tools appeared to be taking effect, though trust would take much longer to rebuild. Our family settled into peaceful stability. Ben officially adopted Emily with her biological father's consent. My ex signed the papers without contest, acknowledging he had lost that relationship through his own actions. Emily chose to hyphenate her last name, honoring both the father who raised her and the one who chose to love her. Gabby maintained her Saturday visits with her father, slowly building a healthier dynamic. He learned to ask about her interests instead of interrogating her about our household. She shared stories about school and friends, keeping appropriate boundaries around family life. The visits became less stressful and more genuinely enjoyable for both of them. A year after the custody modification, we took our delayed family honeymoon. All 5 of us traveled to the beach, building sandcastles and making memories without the constant worry of custody schedules. Gabby collected shells to show her dad during their next visit, no longer afraid that enjoying time with one family meant betraying the other. The court-ordered reviews showed consistent progress. My ex completed all requirements and gradually earned additional time with Gabby. The relationship would never be what it once was, but it evolved into something functional and appropriately bounded. He learned to be a father within limitations, focusing on quality over control. Our home became a true sanctuary. Family dinners were relaxed affairs without the underlying tension of impending transitions. Gabby flourished in the stability, developing confidence and joy that had been suppressed by constant conflict. Emily pursued her college dreams unburdened by caretaking responsibilities. Ben and I strengthened our marriage without the persistent external chaos. Looking forward, we maintained cautious optimism. The legal battles had ended, replaced by structured cooperation. My ex would always be Gabby's father, but the dynamic had fundamentally shifted. The court's intervention had provided the framework for everyone to heal and grow within appropriate boundaries. Gabby occasionally asked why families had to be so complicated. We explained that sometimes adults make mistakes, and systems exist to protect children when that happens. She understood that loving multiple parental figures was okay, and that she never had to choose sides again. The guilt and manipulation tactics had been replaced by genuine, if limited, connection. Our story wasn't unique. Countless families navigate similar challenges. What mattered was breaking the cycle of emotional manipulation and prioritizing the children's well-being over adult conflicts. The legal system, while imperfect, had provided the structure structure necessary for healing. Professional intervention through therapy and supervision had created space for healthier patterns to develop. Ben proved himself repeatedly as a devoted stepfather who understood boundaries while providing unconditional love. He never overstepped during legal proceedings but remained a steady presence for both girls. His patience during the tumultuous times had been rewarded with 2 daughters who chose him as their dad in every way that mattered. The financial burden of legal fees took time to resolve, but it was worth every penny for our daughters' emotional safety. We budgeted carefully, knowing that investing in their well-being would pay dividends in their future relationships and mental health. The immediate sacrifices paled compared to the long-term benefits of breaking destructive patterns. Emily's relationship with her biological father never recovered, but she found peace with that reality. She maintained cordial distance at family events, protecting her own emotional well-being while supporting her sister's different choice. The sisters' bond had only strengthened through their shared experiences, creating a support system that would last their lifetime. As I write this, Gabby is preparing for middle school, confident and secure. She sees her father regularly within the established structure, maintaining appropriate boundaries while enjoying their time together. The fear and anxiety have been replaced by predictability and safety. She knows she is loved by multiple parents who have learned to prioritize her needs above their conflicts. Our family portrait now includes 5 people who chose each other through challenge and triumph. The path to peace required legal intervention, professional support, and tremendous patience. But the result, children who feel safe, loved, and free to be themselves, justified every difficult moment along the way. The OP used specific examples like Emily's graduation speech and the beach trip to show real healing instead of just telling us things got better. The detail about Gabby collecting shells to share with her dad during their next visit perfectly captures how she learned to love both families without feeling torn between them. That's it for this video though. Hope you enjoyed it and see you in the next one.